Greetings, kindred. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome back to our World of Darkness and another playlist of Level by Level. And right now we're working on Protean, and I have been so very excited to get to this one because Protean encompasses so much more than it used to. With Protean, we step outside of the realm of the mental, which most disciplines tend to cover. Yes, we have our fortitude, our potence, or celerity, but dominate, presence, aspects, obfuscate. These disciplines tend to all handle social aspects or mental aspects of kindred existence. When we get into Protean, we're talking about not just mastery over the mind, but mastery over the body. And what that can mean to the various different clans that actually practice this now, because this is not just the domain of the gangrel any longer. And it actually fits in quite well with my own personal mythos that I've built up from playing Vampire the Masquerade as long as I have. When we think about Protean, the very first thing that comes to mind is going to be Clan Gangrel. They are the ones who had it as a clan-specific discipline. But now, if someone happens to be a farmer, as a predator type, they have the access to it. Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition has made it so that the disciplines of Cain, the ones that are described within the pages of the Book of Nod, where he learns his powers, where he learns his access to magic after being awakened by Lilith, he gains Protean. So this isn't something that Anoia, the gangrel antediluvian, just spontaneously created upon her development. This isn't something that they got because they embraced a werewolf or anything like that. This is something ingrained within kindred existence that any vampire who acclimates themselves properly can take, can use, and can turn into other things. Protean, by definition, should be a mutable discipline, something that changes things around. So when we think about Protean in V5, who practices Protean in Standard? The Gangrel, the Ministry, and the Tzimisce are the three clans that practice Protean as per clan use. The Ministry now has it because Protean is the base discipline to Serpentis, to the practice of Serpentis. Serpentis is nothing but snake-centered Protean. And there are bloodlines of the Setites of the Ministry who have practiced Protean from various editions. And I love the fact that it has now come to that. And when you stop and think about it, eyes of the beast, eyes of the serpent. Feral claws, tongue of the adder. Shape of the beast, form of the cobra. These are all things that really have proven to me that even in older editions, Serpentis was a variant of Protean. And has also just solidified the belief that perhaps Set was, in fact, one of Gangrel's children. We also have Clan Tzimisce, which I very much love. I've always loved the idea of the Tzimisce having access to Protean. Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition introduced the Carpathian bloodline, which was effectively younger Old Clan Tzimisce, or younger Old World Tzimisce, and they have access to learning Protean as an in-clan discipline due to the various pacts and agreements that the Gangrel have from passing through the lands that belong to the Tzimisce. And I've always loved that, because to me, the Tzimisce have always been a more sophisticated version of Clan Gangrel. They both share a practice of animalism. They both are shapers in their own right. In Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, this goes to the next level, where vicissitude is in fact a variant of Protean. And I cannot wait until we eventually get to these variants that we're going to cover in this playlist later on. But that is for a later time. Right now we are going to cover the basics of this amazing power that has so many different possibilities. The nicknames for Protean are Morphing, Shapeshifting, and either Mutatio or Mutatio. These are all very fine and well, and I can actually see somebody saying, oh, yeah, well, I escaped because I was morphing. Or I used my ability to, you know, shapeshift to do this and that. These are things, and I think this is a very good example of how I think these nicknames really should just be what common vampires call these things in a general conversation. And saying, oh yeah, I'm shapeshifting, or I'm morphing. Mutatio, or mutatio, or whatever you want to call it, really sounds like you're just trying too hard to sound fancy. And that is so much not what the Gangrel are for. The Gangrel are so adept at just being down to earth, regardless of whether or not their power seems so extraordinary or not. The book states, werewolves despise vampires for their possession of this ability. They consider it a mockery of their own nature, as undead beings become wolves or bats, bearing claws and gnashing fangs like one of their own. Yet Protean has flowed through the blood for almost as long as kindred have existed. The power to mutate, shift forms, and become ever deadlier predators is as natural to the vampires as it is to the lupine. Practitioners of Protean employ this discipline for its utility. The power enables a vampire to become a beast, turn their limbs into weapons, or change their shape into clouds of mist to evade capture, glide through keyholes, or slip through the cracks in a window. Again, this just makes me think Dracula, because I mean, I grew up watching Bram Stoker's Dracula and Gary Oldman turning into mist and packs of rats and massive, huge beasts. I've just been driven into this area, so it's a great description, though. It really is. And I love the fact that it specifies that lupines hate practitioners of Protean. There have been so many games that I've played in where, for some reason, the Gangrel are friends with the werewolves and things like that, and I've just never seen that. I can see an uneasy agreement. Perhaps if a local prince has attempted to make a deal with the lupines, that he will stop development in a wild land if the lupines stay out of the civilized areas. That I can see, but the idea that they get along, or they can see what they have in common, just does not make any sense to me, because even if they could see what makes the Gangrel like a werewolf, that right there is more reason to hate them. Just the utter denial that they're anything alike makes so much more sense. The characteristics of this discipline say, Protean powers that change the shape or other ways transform the body of the vampire also affect clothing, swallowed items, and other small, under a few gram, wearables. Protean does not affect larger carried items, including backpacks, duffel bags, sports bags. For this reason, users of Protean often travel light. I will completely admit that as a storyteller, I have done some pretty mean things in the past when it comes to what items are affected by Protean and not. I do remember one such, and most of the time it's been for comedic relief, and if anybody had ever said anything about how unfair it was, I would probably have backed off and stuff, but I've said things that are funny to me and gotten a laugh out of my game, and Protean is such a fruitful experience when it comes to that. One of the things I remember is a gangrel who had shifted into bat form and had their cell phone on silent in their pocket when they had done so, and one of the other players had called them, and I told them to take a lethal because their phone was on vibrate and they fell out of the sky. That was just so funny to me, and it was one of those things where I had a combative relationship with a player, and they would come up with off-the-wall stupid things that I would have let them get away with, but I would always have those things that I would do like that in the background just to get back at them for doing dumb things. And most of it just was for comic relief and stuff. The type of discipline is physical. You are physically changing shape. The Masquerade Threat is high. One of the most overt disciplines in use is Protean. Available to vampires, more or less all Protean powers can breach the Masquerade on their own. And I want you to stop and think about that, because we have things like Eyes of the Beast. If you're walking around with not glowing eyes like, oh, he's wearing some interesting contacts, but eyes that actually produce enough light for people to be able to see. Weight of the feather. If you jump off a building and you slowly glide down without a parachute or anything like that, it's obvious. Changing into a wolf, popping claws, making your fangs extend further. Protean's a pretty high threat discipline. The blood resonance of Protean. When you're trying to acclimate your body, you want to feed off animal blood, especially animals matching the shapeshifted forms. The blood of werewolves, changelings, and other supernatural chimera of man and beast. So you could feed off werewolves. You could feed off changelings such as Puka, something that has some type of mixture between beast and man. But animals work just fine. Don't be that storyteller who makes your players hunt down a werewolf because they want glowing eyes or they want to pop claws. Feeding off a diet of animals is going to be enough. Now, as far as the way this goes, I would typically go on the whole thing talking about the humor, the element that they're involved in, the Jungian, the Jungian function, the hormone, everything. I would go into all the science stuff. This isn't the same as your caloric or your phlegmatic or your sanguine or your melancholy. No, this is animal blood. And with animal blood, you have basically two options of discipline, and that is animalism and Protean. Now, as to date of me recording this video, there are 3 different predator types which can lead to the practice of Protean. And that is the farmer, the blood leech. So those of you who go out there looking for other vampires to feed off of, which also allows you to have the ability to gain celerity. I guess it's because of the adrenaline of the hunt when it comes to that. And the other one being the roadside killer, which gives you the ability to have either fortitude or Protean. And I do plan on doing a series very much like level by level for the predator types. I just want to get at least the core book done before I move on to yet another series for this. And those predator types, when you stop and think about it, are something that you can see a lot of gangrel going on. With the roadside killer, you're looking at somebody who travels from city to city, somebody who feeds off the transient population of the world. Then there's the farmer, the individual vampire who decides that they're not going to feed off humans, that they are closer to the beast, so therefore they are going to feed from the beasts. And then there's the blood leech, who has decided that they are the apex predator of their kind, and the only game worth hunting for are going to be that of other kindred. Protean is such a beautiful discipline, all in all, and I cannot wait to go over this entire thing with you guys. This overview really has made me stop and think about how other clans get a hold of this. The fact that those 3 predator types will allow other clans, such as the Brujah, the Toreador, the Nosferatu, to gain Protean, opens it up to a whole new world of possibilities, because it used to be only the Gangrel. I like the fact that the Gangrel are the most common clan to practice, but even they can go through existence not practicing it if they decided to give it up for something else. I am Voivode Maquette, and this has been an overview of the discipline Protean on level by level for our World of Darkness. Class dismissed.